Hi, everyone. This is Jacqui Cooper with JCooperTravels, and I want to welcome everyone to listening and remind everyone also to like and subscribe because we have many episodes coming up that will be of interest to you. Today, I have a really special guest who is in an industry that is just booming right now, and I'm going to have him introduce himself. I know I connected with him on LinkedIn, and many of my network actually alignable, I think it was. My mistake, it was alignable. But I know that he's also on LinkedIn and other social media. And I think everyone's going to have a real interest in our conversation today. For those that are not familiar with JCooperTravels, let me just give a quick intro as to who I am and how we came to be. My background is that I'm an attorney, but I navigated over to the special education teaching side because I love working with kids and I love being of service in many different ways. And I'm also a serial entrepreneur. I love to travel, and so I'm a certified travel consultant. But as many know, COVID happened last year, so travel sort of stopped. So I rebranded JCooperTravels. So it's now more about stories of individuals and businesses and how do we travel in life. And that includes how do we stay well? How do we travel, personally, professionally, and just all around? So today's conversation is about an industry that at one point was not legal, but now it is legal. There are many laws, both at the state level, both at the federal level. And we're going to be talking about CBDs and a lot of other parts of this industry. Ben, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to have you introduce yourself and explain more about the company that you're working with and how you actually became involved in this very interesting area. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you. The cannabis industry is interesting. It's very, very interesting. Let me start out well, first off, I'm the vice president of business operations at a third-party testing lab that caters specifically to the hemp and CBD industries and is now expanding into the medicinal and recreational marijuana industries. And what we're called Premium CBD Labs. And we're partnered with a lab in Michigan called Abco Labs, two amazing labs that are run by great scientific group of people. They focus on accuracy, reliability, and a lot of really great customer service, but really focusing on the science of what we can do to ensure that what's labeled out there is labeled correctly, so that people have good, accurate information as to how much THC or CBD is in their products, as well as making sure that those products don't contain things like mercury and lead and pesticides and residual solvents and microbial contamination and mycotoxin remnants and things like that are not good for your body. So people are using this as medicine, and it should be as safe as medicine, although some might argue that a lot of medicines aren't safe. So anyway, that's what our lab does. And we work with a number of hemp and cannabis growers, as well as processors, producers, shops that sell it, consultants, seed suppliers, manufacturers of all types. How did I get into this? Right. So I have not worked in a lab before. I should tell you that, and that's why I'm on the business side of this. I'm not in the lab operating the instruments and making the measurements. There are people with much higher degrees of education than I have that handle those kinds of things. I am on the business side and on the sales and marketing and doing the operations of what we do. And I really, honest to God, fell into this. I was doing consulting for Native American tribes, helping them set up long-term sustainable services for their elderly. And a friend of a friend was starting a testing lab and said he needed some help with, business administration and sales and whatnot. And I said, sure, why not? I've done that for a number of years. So I had a background in marketing and in sales and in motion pictures and a lot of other things that relate to that. I actually have a degree in cinema. Doesn't relate to this at all in any capacity. But so that's kind of how I fell into it. I started out doing business development for the company, and 2 years later, I'm a vice president. So here I am. That's me. That's how I got here, and that's what I do.
So you've defined or you've shared a lot of different terms. So for those that might be totally new to this area, what is hemp? What are all the different things that you've mentioned? I know that as I've gone from the law to the special education to other career paths, there's lingo and language that we use and we become very comfortable with. But for those that are new to this, can you define some of the basic terms so people who are new will understand a little bit more?
Absolutely. And if you hear some traffic noise in the background, I live on a busy street, so uh, you might hear some reggaeton outside or something. I'm sorry. Yes, I can absolutely define some of those terms. There's one plant, it's cannabis. That's the plant. There's marijuana and there's hemp. So uh, there's laws that really govern what that delineation is. And the law states that if it has below 0.3, not 3, 0.3% THC, then it's hemp. If it's above that threshold, it's marijuana. And it's arbitrary and meaningless because at 0.32%, you're not going to get high. And even at 1%, you're not going to get high. I mean, like it is absolutely arbitrary. Um, but that's the delineation. Um, Different states have different laws regarding and regulations regarding the cultivation of hemp and also the cultivation of marijuana, whether one's legal and the other one's not. There are some states that don't allow any hemp in their state still. A couple of them, they're stalwarts, but there are a number of states that have adopted at least medicinal marijuana laws as well as recreational or adult use laws. I live in Illinois. We have a partner lab in Michigan, and our main lab, which focuses on hemp and CBD, is in Madison, Wisconsin, which only has hemp, does not have medicinal or adult use marijuana yet.
So I know that individuals might want to use your business, but I also know corporations might want to use your business. So there are a lot of different products that businesses are creating right now. So what do you test and what do you provide to the businesses as feedback, or what they send you a product, what happens next?
So, so let's say Joe Farmer is growing a bunch of hemp in his field, and in order for him to be able to sell that hemp to consumers or manufacturers or anything like that, in order for it to come off of his field and for him to be able to sell it in any capacity, it has to pass that THC percentage threshold. So if it's hemp, it needs to be below 0.3% THC. So a lot of growers will use our services to monitor their crop throughout the growing season to make sure that they don't grow hot hemp. Even if they do, there's a chance for remediation for them through the USDA's rules, but most of the time they really don't want to hit that level because then they'd have to go through extra steps and spend a lot more money to either remediate or they lose their crop. They'd have to destroy it. So we work with a lot of farmers and a lot of growers. There are a lot of processors who are making CBD gummies and tinctures and oils and salves and what have you, bath bombs, kinesiology tape, dietary supplement pills, any number of things. There are even CBD candles. I don't know why burning a CBD candle is going to do anything for you, but hey, I also don't know why a bath bomb would do anything for you. You're sitting there in 10 gallons of water. I don't know what good 10 milligrams or 100 milligrams of CBD in 10 gallons of water is going to do for you. But people will make it, and so we have to test it. So that's thing one. A number of states have also adopted some rules for consumer safety about this. So that would require testing for things like heavy metals, lead, mercury, arsenic, cadmium, nickel, those kinds of things that can have lasting damaging effects, especially through accumulated exposure to those things. Other things that are on the contaminant side, you're talking about microbial growth, whether it's mold or aspergillus or E. coli. The things that you hear about where there was a recall of meat because it was tampered with E. coli. You don't want that going into your lungs either, even if you're killing it and smoking it. And what those microbes can grow, even if they're dead, they're not growing and they're active on the plant anymore. They can leave behind toxins called mycotoxins, or microbial toxins, that can also have a very deleterious effect on your health, and you don't want those going into your body either, or on your body. Other things like pesticides, certain pesticides can have a very bad effect on the body, and same thing with the solvents that are used in the production of some of these compounds and some of these products. So we test for those as well. We also test for terpenes, which are like the things that add the flavor and smell and may have some therapeutic effects to them as well. So that's what we test for. We pretty much exclusively test with businesses. If somebody buys a $100 bottle of 1,000 mg CBD tincture, are they going to spend another $300 to $400 to $500 testing it for contaminants just to make sure that one bottle is? No, that's on the manufacturer. And some states require that, some don't. For hemp, almost every medicinal and recreational state has safety testing built into the regulations that they have for the marijuana market. So that's mandatory on most of those.
So if you did find a contaminant and you share this with one of the companies that hires you for that information, and you share that information with them, are they required to share it with the public, or what sort of steps are there?
For the cannabis market in general, yes and no. For hemp, some states would be that reporting is required. Most states, not at all. For marijuana, there is a database that is used by most states, and that for all states that have medical or adult use marijuana, that is reported data on those. So that does end up being available to the consumer. But for hemp and CBD products, most states do not require that level of reporting, nor do they require that testing. So we give those results we give those test results back to the company that hires us to do the testing for them. And they do with it as they please. There's no, we are not required to report that information in most states, and they are not required to report that information in most states. And unfortunately, in most states, even if let's say that there's elevated levels of mercury in their product, they can still put it on the shelf.
So how is there any way for the consumer to be protected?
There is, and that's for consumers to be aware and to ask the right questions. In the industry, there's something known as a COA. It's actually not just our industry. It means certificate of analysis. A consumer going into the gas station to go and pick up CBD, they're not going to be able to find that COA unless there's a label on the bottle or on the packaging that has a QR code that shows that COA. But just having a COA, that analysis report, doesn't mean anything if you don't know how to read it. And it also doesn't mean anything if it's only testing for one thing. So as I said, all states require testing of the potency, how much CBD and THC is in, actually only the amount of THC. That's the only thing that's required in most states. For labeling, you need to accurately label. So if you're saying that it's 1,000 milligrams of CBD in your tincture, you should have really close, within a margin of error, to 1,000 milligrams of CBD in that tincture. The consumer can look at that lab analysis and say, oh yeah, no, that actually measures up. This is what they say it is. But if that lab analysis doesn't include any of those safety tests, any of those contaminant tests, then that's suspicious. I mean, not to me. I know a number of companies that are doing things the right way that just don't publish those results. But as a consumer, if you want to know that information, you can demand it. And that's the way you can be protected. So my recommendation is not to go to the gas station to pick up your product. but to go to a reputable retailer of said products, because they're probably going to have a little bit more of a rigorous approach to the products that they're putting in their shelves, and they're vetting them a little more thoroughly um, than, say, a gas station would. Large retailers are doing this as well. So, for example, a great example right now would be Sephora. This is a cosmetics company. This is a cosmetics retailer. They said if you want CBD in your products and you want them on our shelves, you have to test for these contaminants. And they put the list of contaminants out there for anybody who wants to put CBD products on their shelves in Sephora. So, if you go to Sephora and pick up, and I'm not endorsing Sephora, I'm just saying this was what their policy was. Other companies have similar policies as well and are adopting similar policies. I'm just using them as an example. But that way, if you're going to a reputable retailer, you can have some reasonable assurance that there's some vetting process that goes on as far as getting products that are at least tested for human safety on some level. And you can go to your retailer, ask them, are these products safety tested?
Is there a federal organization that is becoming involved with this industry, or that you think should become involved with this industry?
Boy, am I treading on some thin ice with that question. Good one. I did tell you to throw some curveballs at me. So it's a good one. So here's an issue that's going on right now with the agencies. Already, the USDA is involved in the production of hemp. USDA does not touch the production of marijuana. That is not in their purview. It is not federally legal still. Individual states, no problem. States' rights and all that. And that's kind of the federalism that kind of governs over the whole thing that's going on. But USDA doesn't touch marijuana. They have a heavy hand in what's going on as far as hemp cultivation. So they're one agency that already has a significant amount of regulatory control. The FDA regulates which drugs can and cannot be approved for use. And also they regulate the nutraceuticals and the supplements market, as well as food products. And the FDA has their own rules that they've already imposed on the CBD and hemp industry. Again, they have some oversight on marijuana only in the aspect that Marinol, which is a synthetic THC, is an approved drug by the FDA. Same thing with cannabidiol, which is CBD, and there's an approved drug for that called Epidiolex. So those are both FDA-approved medications. As for CBD usage in normal products, they've come out against putting CBD in foods. They've come out against it as an additive, but there's some legislation that's in Congress right now that would force the FDA to treat CBD and hemp as I believe it was a nutraceutical or a supplement. So they would have to come up with some kind of regulatory oversight on that, and they have not as of yet. The USDA says, hey, once it's out of the ground and it's harvested, it's out of our hands. We're done with it. The FDA would then have to take up the call on that. Then you have the DEA. And the DEA still lists THC as a Schedule 1 controlled substance. Up until very recently, fentanyl was listed as Schedule 2. Schedule 1 is the highest level, meaning that it's the least safe and has no medicinal value whatsoever, which we all know is false when it comes to THC. There's a ton of clinical evidence to show otherwise. And while fentanyl does have some therapeutic use, it's an incredibly dangerous substance and kills people, whereas THC does not kill people that we know of, directly at least. So the DEA is kind of an interesting component on this. Anyway, now there's 3 agencies that are regulating this from different aspects. The DEA has oversight, and the DEA is a division of the Department of Justice. So that's part of the DOJ and works with the DOJ oversight. So whatever the DOJ decides, essentially the Attorney General, the DEA would kind of have to follow suit on some level. And if there's legislation enacted that would say force the DEA to deschedule THC or marijuana, then the DEA would have to comply. But otherwise, the DEA has the oversight and the authority to schedule substances and enforce that. Their enforcement of THC has not been as robust as it has been in the past. That's been mostly up to local law enforcement. So federal crimes, as far as federal trafficking of THC and marijuana, that's been on some decline. But either way, there's also an interesting kind of backlash from these three different agencies controlling this one plant, because according to some of the international treaties that we're engaged in that regulate marijuana on an international level, those treaties state that only one supervisory organization can have control over this. So the United States is in violation of certain treaties by having three different organizations trying to govern the same product, the same plant. It's very interesting. It's a very complicated and very complex landscape, and I did a very bad job of explaining it.
No, I think you did a great job because, for even though my background's law, that's not an area of specialty for me. And, to know all the various agencies. And I know that on the state side, it also is very complicated. Because again, every state, we were talking before we went online, every state is a little bit different in terms of how they decide what can be carried through their state, what can be used in their state. And I have no doubt that, people on airplanes, flying from one place to another, that probably, you don't think about what rules are you, following or breaking when you travel. So from that perspective, for the products that you test, because I know that that's what the primary purpose of your company, even though you have a huge knowledge base, can these products be transported or, across lines, or are they pretty generic? They can be sold anywhere.
Most CBD products or CBD based products or hemp based products can go across state lines, no problem. Most. Now that states are granting themselves more authority than others, that one of the big hot items right now in the hemp community and in the hemp industry is Delta 8 THC. Delta 8 is not Delta 9 THC. And Delta 9 is the original THC that gets everybody high, that everybody knows about. And that's what's been on the schedule for the DEA for a long time. Well, the DEA just put Delta 8 on their schedule as well, specifically. Delta 8 occurs in such tiny quantities in the plant naturally, the USDA won't touch it. The FDA hasn't come out about it at all, and the DEA said no. Unfortunately, there's also the Farm Bill from 2018, which is what really allowed the robust hemp production that's going on right now. And the Farm Bill says something about how hemp and any derivative, isomer, et cetera, derived from hemp is legal, essentially. So now Delta 8 being made from CBD, it comes from hemp. That's Delta 8 THC. There's also Delta 10 THC. Now, a number of states have said, no, we're banning this. A number of states have already banned it. They've banned Delta 8 and Delta 10 THC. The interesting one was Colorado. Colorado banned Delta 8 THC. Colorado has a totally open weed market. Like Colorado is the one of the showboats of the marijuana industry, and they're saying no Delta 8. So state by state, yeah, the rules totally vary. You can go and buy Delta 8 cartridges in the middle of Florida for whatever. You fly into Colorado and you have them, technically you're breaking Colorado law. Can these products be shipped across the country? Yes, they can. But companies are getting wise as to like which states you can and cannot ship to. But most CBD products, regular CBD salve or an oil or kinesiology tape or any of those things, yeah, it can be made in, it can be made in Illinois and shipped out to Arizona, whatever. That doesn't matter. In fact, the Farm Bill states that no state can restrict the transportation of hemp through their state lines, so across state lines. For a while, Idaho was trying to do that, and they got slapped, and they're like, no, Idaho, you have to let people travel through your state with hemp. You don't have to let them cultivate it in your state. You can ban that, but you have to let them travel with it. It is a fully interstate commerce, and it's a multi-billion-dollar industry now.
How difficult is it to set up a lab like what you have for the testing? And what background does the lab have to have in order to be able to be in that type of business?
Equipment alone, you're going to spend over $1 million to do all these tests. Equipment alone, you're going to spend over $1 million, probably more. So just think about that. At least $1 million in equipment just to have something that works. Then you've got the consumables. This equipment uses solvents in order to make some of these, in order to properly use the instrumentation. Other things like columns and scales, pipettes, all of this stuff, like all this specialized equipment. So that's thing one. Fume hoods, showers, specialty insulation, like a fire safety cabinet, lock system so that you can handle the product. -80 freezers, -80 Celsius, by the way, -80 and -40 freezers, high, like all of these things. It's a ton of equipment. Knowing how to properly use that takes a significant amount of expertise. And so there are people with bachelor's degrees who are operating day-to-day stuff inside the lab as lab techs, but for lab management, you really need somebody with a master's or higher in some related scientific field. I would not choose a physicist for this. Analytical chemistry, biochemistry, microbiology. These are the kinds of specialties that you'd want running a lab. Expertise costs money. Then there's rent, heating, temperature control, air quality control. If you're testing for microbes in an environment that is rich, full of microbes, you've got wood panels on or wood beams on your ceiling, like you need to create a clean room. You need to do all these kinds of environmental controls on your systems. It's expensive. I would say if you want to start a lab, you need at least $2 million in the bank to get started, just to get started.
And the company, circling back, the company that you're with, how old is it?
They actually officially chartered in 2018. They opened their doors in 2019.
And how do you normally get clients?
Luck. No. I reach out to people, I have conversations like this, going out to shows and expos and events and networking with people and talking with clients and getting referrals. And there's a number of really great communities of some very knowledgeable and also some maybe not so knowledgeable people online, on Facebook, on LinkedIn. Alignable has a great cannabis community in it. So social media has been another great avenue. Never hurts to pick up the phone and call somebody.
It's very true.
If you want to work with somebody as a client, like if you're trying to branch out and expand your business and you're not out there networking and trying to meet people who can connect you with people, that's really important, is meet people who can connect you with people. But don't be afraid to pick up the phone.
Yeah.
You've got a business down the street that you would love to do business with, or business across the country that you want to do business with. Call them. What's the worst that can happen? They say no. Then you're back to where you began right off the bat, but at least they know who you are now.
That's very true. That's very true. I know that's how we connected. So I want you to share, even though the information will definitely be in the information below for the podcast and as well as the YouTube side. If someone, a company wanted to reach out to you to use you, how would they, what's the best way to connect for you or with you?
Carrier pigeon. No, we have a website, www.premiumcbdlabs.com. We have a Facebook page. You can follow us on Twitter @PremiumCBDLabs. We're also on Instagram @PremiumCBDLabs. You can find us on LinkedIn. We're on Alignable. So you can reach out to us in a number of ways. But yeah, great start is always the website, PremiumCBDLabs.com. We've got a lot of information there. We've done a lot of great analysis of some of the policies that are happening, some great talks at some of the trade shows. You can get a lot of information about what's going on in the industry from us. But yeah, we've got all of our testing capabilities. Our phone number is right there, our email, reach out to us. We love talking to people.
And I would definitely suggest that, people think about what we've been talking about here on the show. I mean, I, for one, never thought about toxins within any of the products. We kind of, I make assumptions that when I pick a product off the shelf, that it's organic, and it's not. It's not always clean for the body use from the perspective of being fully healthy. There's, so there are many layers and levels to both what we ingest and what we apply and how our body absorbs things. So, again, we might not always think that we're going to have an allergic reaction to something, but as you mentioned, the long-term impact of applying something that might feel good, but then down the road has some toxin within it that can be absorbed by the bloodstream and create some illness down the road. That's something. And that's not just with this product line or industry. That's true with other products that we might decide to purchase as well. So I don't want this to be a negative on this industry. I think it's definitely something that across the board, whether it's what we eat or what we put, use in our shampoos or conditioners or anything else like that, I think we just need to be aware that the label doesn't always tell us everything.
And not only that, I mean, like, and I don't mean to scare anybody. Maybe I do a little bit, but um, boo. So, you know, it's not it, and I don't want anybody to be shy about trying CBD or, seeking out any of the cannabis products as therapy for things. It can be a very powerful and very useful medicine for many, and it can be a very mellow and very easygoing kind of experience for a lot of people. Just be conscious of what you're getting.
Exactly.
Don't just go and pick up a product off the shelf and think, okay, it's fine. Most of them are. That's like the whole thing. It's like the most of these products are fine. Most of them. Most of them. And the thing is that if they're doing it right, they're going to be transparent about it. At least that's my perspective. And there should be some chain of information that you can find about these products that is going to help you assess whether it is safe or not for you to use. But then again, if you pick up a bottle of shampoo from the store, there's stuff in that shampoo bottle that's really horrible. I mean, anything can be bad. If you down an entire container of salt, it will kill you. Like, so yeah, just be conscious of what you're doing. Know how to use what you're using. Know how to eat what you're eating. Know how to find products that are good and safe for you. Know that even though it says organic on it, there's still a number of pesticides they can use for organic products. Any of those things. So ask for information. It never hurts to ask. And if you can't get that information, find a way to get it, or go somewhere where you can find that information, where they do publish that. There are a number of online retailers that publish that information that's out there. You can look at it and see it. And if you want to know how to read that stuff, you can always contact us too. But yeah, hopefully this has been helpful. I mean, like, I'm not trying to scare anybody away from this industry. CBD and marijuana and all those things, it's a great industry. It's great products. It's good stuff. There needs to be some awareness that, yeah, you should probably look out for your safety and look out for these things and make sure that these things are properly done and properly produced, and that there's testing involved,
Yeah.
so that you know what's in there and that you know what's not in there, more importantly.
Yeah, no, I've learned a lot by what you've been sharing, and I truly am grateful. I know that we have many conversations to come, so definitely everyone like and subscribe, because I know that this industry is exploding, and so in all different areas that we've talked about, from the laws, at the state side to the federal side to the product side. I know that the company that Ben's working with is expanding in different areas. We're going to be coming back to talk about that. So definitely, connect, take a look at the link that I'm sharing below so that way you can educate yourself. It's always important for consumers to be aware and educated. That's the purpose of the show, is to provide that. And stay tuned for more episodes. Thank you so much, Ben, for being on. Any last minute thoughts that you want to share?
Yeah, sure. Well, first off, thank you for having me. I'm always glad to talk about this. It's a very passionate subject for me. It's not just my job. It's like something that I really take true and take to heart. And I fall asleep easy knowing that we're doing the good work. We've got a great team of people. But yeah, I'm looking forward to more conversations about this and about as things grow. I really enjoy being on shows like this. Smash that like button, smash it with your pinky finger or your index finger right now. Definitely hit subscribe and do that little bell thing too, so you get notified when there's more shows. Do that. Follow us too if you can. It's great. But yeah, demand more information, demand more clarity, demand more transparency in everything, not just cannabis and hemp and those things. Like just demand it everywhere. Get info. That's good for you. It's good to get information. Yeah, that's it. That's my 2 cents.
I
Oh, and also,
agree.
thanks for not asking me any questions I couldn't answer. Like I work. This is an important one. I actually do want to say this. I work for a testing lab, so I can't endorse any products. So when I mentioned Sephora earlier, for example, I don't endorse Sephora. I don't not endorse Sephora either. But I can't endorse any products. I can't endorse any brands or anything like that. So don't call me and ask me what's the best CBD brand for this, because I can't answer that question, because I lose impartiality by doing that. And I don't even want to tread that line. And I appreciate you not asking me any questions that even made me come close to treading that. And I appreciate the curveballs too.
Well, I'm sure that there'll be other questions that will throw the curveball to you down the road. So I look forward to having that opportunity. Thank you so much. Everyone, as was mentioned, like and subscribe and stay tuned for the next episode. Have a great one. Bye.